Every day you and I get bombarded with negative news. Just like the body becomes what we eat, the mind becomes what we're putting in. It is important to listen to stories that not only gives you hope, but also inspires you and uplifts you. In this podcast, we're interviewing experts who will break down the solutions to the world's most pressing problems. And I promise you, if you listen to this podcast, you will not only stay informed, but you will also feel more energy in your life. Welcome to Great.com Talks with. Hey, if you want to help protect the planet Earth, make sure you like and subscribe to this channel, because Great.com is a philanthropical project which is donating 100% of our profit towards the most effective cause areas like protecting the rainforest or helping climate change technology to develop. And the topic of today is goodness in society. Where do we find goodness in today's world? And to understand more about that, we have invited Naomi Eisenberg from the Good People Fund. So I want to say welcome, Naomi.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Naomi, what would you say that the problem that you guys are trying to solve is?
Well, there's not one problem. We really direct our focus to people who are trying to change our world in good ways. They're all people who are addressing significant issues that are affecting everyone, whether it's hunger, poverty, issues that relate to refugees, new programs we're now working with that are trying to eliminate hatred in our society, programs that deal with people who have disabilities. All of them, all of the programs that we ourselves support have been founded by generally one individual or a small group of people. We refer to them as good people. They're all ordinary human beings who have decided that there is some issue in this world that they want to try to fix. And they have found creative ways to do that. Most of them are not nonprofit professionals. They haven't been trained in nonprofit management. They're just ordinary good people who want to do good. And our focus is on finding them, identifying them, and then helping them in their work. Our second goal is to make them more visible so that other people can learn about their work and step up and help them. All of them are working with budgets of very small numbers. Many don't have staff. They may be working with volunteers, but they're all extraordinarily inspiring people that make you want to help.
So in a way, you could say that the problem that you're solving is to help create more role models, or at least showcase how many role models are out there who are then in turn trying to solve all the different problems that we have as a society.
That is a very significant part of what we're doing. I don't remember who made the statement, but essentially we want people who learn about our work and come to look at it to say, hey, they did that. Why can't I do that? Whoever it might, whatever program they might be looking at. So that we really want to hold these people out as inspirations for the rest of us to use whatever talents we may have to do good. You know, I know you're called great. We're just good.
Then if I heard that you said that you are finding these people, and then you help them to people to find them, right? To showcase.
Yes,
How
right.
would you go about finding good people in the world today? How would you do that? That's
Well,
very interesting.
our focus is primarily on the United States and Israel. We're so I have a much smaller I have a much smaller field that I have to look through. And there's no secret to doing it. It's basically, I do an enormous amount of reading. Um, Sometimes people send me links to something that they've found that they think is very interesting. But generally, of the 70 plus programs that we support, we have identified all of them ourselves. And that's basically just networking, reading, and so forth. Occasionally, if somebody has gotten a significant amount of publicity in a major publication, we wouldn't necessarily go looking at them because they've already made their splash. Sometimes that doesn't result in getting a lot of attention or a lot of support. But what I've also learned is that our grantees themselves are often conduits to others who may be working in their community or others that they know about who are doing equally good and impressive work. So there's no magic to how we find them. They're all out, truly, they're out there. Many more probably than we would think. So
And once you've found a person, maybe let's say, for example, someone doing hosting an open kitchen for people who are hungry. They would do it on voluntarily basis because they want to help people, right? So you find this person, you would do. Are you saying that you are sometimes funding that person to help
yeah,
the
yeah.
organization?
Once we have identified that person, um, the the first step is to get to know them, meet them. You know, unfortunately, COVID has sort of cramped my style a lot because I can't go meeting people. I have to rely on Zoom for the most part. But generally, that first conversation um, gives me the information that I need, whether this is real and this is the kind of person that we want to continue to establish a relationship with. It's a gut that I have developed over 25 years plus of doing this work. I think that by and large, there are certain core attributes that I would say each of these people holds. One of them is humility. If I detect a little too much ego, um, that could be a turnoff to me. But generally speaking, when I meet with them and I hear the passion in their voice and I hear um, the joy that they get from doing whatever it is that they're doing, and most of the time they're not getting paid to do it, um, that for me is that's a good thing. And so then I'll start to dig deeper into um, the setup. How are they doing this? By and large, most of the programs that we are supporting have already become more formal in terms of becoming an organization. But occasionally we find somebody who has an idea and has been doing it, and we'll step in to help them become a more formal entity. With so many years of doing this, I have become um, a mentor to all of our programs because, as I said, they're not nonprofit professionals. They're just people who are driven to do something good, and don't necessarily know the best way to go about doing it. So we provide them with that mentoring to allow them, this is what you need for, if you have a board, this is what you should look for. This is what the law requires you to do. How do you find a board? What kind of bylaws should you have as an organization? For more mature organizations, sometimes there's questions, they have problems with board members. How do they handle it? How do we raise money? There's a million questions. Running a nonprofit organization is, it's not easy. It's very difficult. And I always say to people who I meet, if you don't want to go to bed at night worrying about where the money's going to come from and wake up in the morning and have exactly the same concerns, don't do this. Because as exciting as it may be, and as fulfilling as it may be, the reality is that there is still hard work, and you need money to do, unfortunately, you need money to do good work. And all of the programs that we work with operate on very modest budgets. For the most part, we fund programs that have essentially about $500,000 budget is the tops. Most are far below that.
Mm. So what we're talking about here is identifying people who are actually doing it for the cause, not for themselves, you could say. Once you've found those people, altruistic kind of
Yes,
mindset,
right.
then you would just support them in their mission.
We
So
support
the
them.
support that you always, I guess, wanted, but no one ever gave. So that's the kind of support. And
Yeah,
then I guess you would also showcase their story, or
yeah.
you're helping with.
Our website is very rich, goodpeoplefund.org. It's a very rich website. It's filled with lots of material. Probably the most comprehensive piece is what we call our annual report, which comes out every year just at this time, because our fiscal year ends at the end of June. So on November 1st, we usually issue our annual report, which is about 40 pages of description, picture, narrative, as well as pictures of all of our programs. And it describes in detail what the program's about. It describes, obviously, the founder and what drives them. We find that people look forward to receiving this document every year. It goes out to about 5,000 people on our mailing list, and it's a feel-good document. And they've just gone out in the mail on last week, and I'm sitting here now writing personal letters to about 100 and something people. And I started by saying that this year of all years, this is a document that will make you feel good, and that there is hope, and that there is so much goodness in this world, despite the fact that we are living in a global pandemic and in an economic pandemic that, this country hasn't seen in a very long time. But it's just about goodness. That's the bottom line.
I'm curious to understand. I guess it would be very helpful if people contacted you directly and say if you have someone that you would like to recommend, then they would write to you. Let's say that I have a person I kind of believe in. I'm not sure though to how to feel if the person is coming from ego or not. How would you assess the goodness in people when it comes to Um, I guess my question is, how do I know if I'm in my ego or not? Let's say I'm a person who might not, who actually might be appropriate or not. How do I know that?
Um, I think I know if I said to you, I know it when I see it. That
Yeah.
doesn't satisfy you. I think that it's what I hear coming out of their mouth. I don't want to hear I. I don't want to hear a lot of I's. I want to hear a lot of we, they. Um, it's not about themselves. It's about the work that they're doing and about whatever problem it is that they're trying to make better. Um, and sometimes it's also unspoken. Sometimes it's just the rapport that um, you achieve in a conversation with people. Um, I spoke yesterday to a young woman who's running a program in Detroit that's a drop-in center for homeless youth, which is an enormous problem in this country and particularly in Detroit. And I asked her, how did she start to do this? Why did she start to do this? Well, her answer wasn't a whole lot different than many of the other programs that we deal with. She herself was homeless at one point. And many, many times it's personal experiences that have led these people to do the kind of work that they do. So as I continued the conversation with her and learned more and more about what her life had been like and what she learned as being, she was in college and she was homeless. She was living in her car. And she talked about, once she graduated and she was living in a home with some friends, and her brother showed up at the door and he was homeless. And she took him in and then some of his friends. And there was this group of 6 guys sleeping in the basement. They were all homeless. And, her landlord wanted to evict her. I mean, there's a whole long story to this. Ultimately, she very quietly shared that her brother ultimately ended up committing suicide. And, that part of the conversation just startles you and leaves you breathless. And you know immediately what's driving this woman and how real it is. So when I heard that, when I heard the story from her, I haven't yet looked at financials and so forth, but to me, she has
We got a call on the phone there. Yeah. Wonder who it is.
no, it's a spam call that comes every day at this hour. It's, whatever she said, it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And every one of our programs, there's a story behind it. Some of them are extraordinarily poignant like that. And some of them are just good stories. There are a lot of people in this world who are driven to feed people. I'm not driven. It's not what drives me, but I know so many of our programs that involve food were started by people who feel this extraordinary compulsion to be sure that people have enough food to eat, that it is a God-given right to be able to have enough food. And you can hear that in your conversations with them.
And I understand better when you explain that. So I'm hearing when people have to focus on the collective contribution or the collective result, and also when people have lived through the experience themselves, and they don't want other people to have to go through the same thing, right? That is two strong
Absolutely.
indicators.
Yeah.
Well, what would people do then if people would recommend you someone? How do they reach out to you? Where do
Well,
people...
basically, our rule is that we find programs on our own.
Okay, so you
Because if
wouldn't
we,
take recommendations.
no, I'm not going to say that if somebody doesn't, if someone sends me an email and says, you know, I just learned about this, it's not that I'm not going to read the email, I will.
Mm.
But there's a 95% chance that that's all it's going to be, is that I'm going to read it and I'm going to write back and say, thanks so much for sharing this. And that'll be it. And, you know, a very small percentage of the times that that happens, it's something that I will start to dig deeper and look at.
Have you experienced from people who have kind of tried to get funds when it wasn't the real thing? Is that...
I would say that we have a 99.9% success rate in, I don't think we've never funded anything. We would never fund anything that isn't real, honestly, because we do a lot of legwork. You know, I have a personal relationship with every one of our grantees, and they know, you know, I think to a person, they would say, even if you didn't give us money, we would want to maintain this relationship, because, you know, running a nonprofit organization is a very lonely business. And when you have to constantly look for more funds, typical funders don't necessarily establish real relationships with their grantees. There's a certain, it's not a disconnect, but, you know, this person has money and this person needs it. So there's already a chasm there. We don't look at it that way. Yes, we have the money, but I take all of our grantees and I really believe all of them are friends. And if we, you know, if for some reason we stop funding a program, the relationship doesn't necessarily end. They know that they can come back. They can contact me just to say hello, or they can contact me to say, you know, I'm struggling with such and such. What's your feeling? How should I handle this problem or that problem? So there's an equanimity in the relationship. Just because I have a checkbook doesn't make me better than they are. And I think that they would all say that that's how they feel about working with us.
So the relationship is very important in this whole...
Absolutely. It's all about relationships.
Have we missed any vital part to understand the organization, the Good People Fund? Have we missed anything vital?
I think you know, it's about the people. It's about the good work that they're doing. I think it's, you know, we ourselves operate in much as the same way as the programs that we're looking to support. I'm the only full-time employee of the organization. I have a part-time administrator who works. We have a part-time consultant who does marketing for us. I didn't have to learn how to work at home last March when everything shut down, because what you're looking at has been my office for almost 13 years. I haven't moved. And, you know, we try to maintain, fortunately, our overhead is covered by donors who contribute specifically to cover overhead. So donors realize that nearly 100% of what they're donating is going to be used to help our programs. And as I said, we're in Israel and in the United States.
What would you want people to do after hearing this, Cynthia?
I'd love it if they went to our website, which is goodpeoplefund.org, and just tool around. It's filled with beautiful pictures. It's filled with great stories. The best place to land is on our annual report page. And the new 2020 report is smack there in the middle, and it's bright and cheery, and it's set up in a flip book, and you can just go through it. It has beautiful text and beautiful stories. I hear so many times from donors that when they want to feel good, they pick up that book. It in many places it sort of becomes a coffee table book for a while after it comes out. It's a lot to read, so people just pick it up and look at it a little bit and put it down and go back to it. It has an extraordinarily wide variety of programs. That's one of the most important parts of us, of what we do, is that we really provide, if you'll pardon the expression, a smorgasbord of programs that run the gamut of, as I mentioned before, from hunger to women's empowerment to refugee issues. And we act very quickly. We have something we call the 4 S's. We act with speed, the scope of our programs, the oversight that we have over our programs, and the fact that we screen them carefully, and that accountability is important. We don't just write a check and say goodbye. It's a check, and you stay in touch and you report back to us. I normally spend 2 weeks in Israel every year, which won't happen this year. It takes that long to see all of our programs and to have meaningful conversations with them. And I travel through the United States to most of the areas where we have a core of programs in the East Coast, West Coast, a few in the middle of the country. And that's the Good People Fund in a nutshell.
Mm. I would like to end this interview by asking you if more people could understand how to repair the world, what would that be? What would you want more people to understand?
I think what people should understand is that they have within themselves certain talents, certain skills that they can use to repair the world. The expression in Hebrew is tikkun olam, which is really repairing the world. Every one of us has the ability to do a piece of that. Our tagline is small actions, huge impacts. I never look at a glass as half empty. It's always half full, because we prove every day that a small amount of money or even a small action can change things. And it's hard to sometimes get your head around that when things seem so overwhelmingly difficult. But I think that if everyone stopped and thought about what it is, what skills they have, sometimes I ask kids, what are you good at? What do you like to do? What in this world makes you angry? Then you can use the answers to those questions to kind of hone in on where you might be able to make a difference. We're not going to solve world hunger. This organization is certainly not going to solve world hunger, but we're we're going to help more people have food on their table. And so it's taking your little piece of the world and making it better.